All right, 7 o'clock. Hello, we're here for the planning board meeting of August 28th, 2019. We're gonna start off with opening the public hearing on all of the zoning changes that are going through. The first one to come up is going to be the Route 40, Article 21. Just as a note to everybody, this is for stuff on the north side of Route 40 only. The south side of Route 40 is not getting changed. It is not on the agenda, and we do not want anybody talking about the south side at this point. So with that being said, another thing, try to keep it so if one person makes a comment, we don't have everybody making the same comment. I think with that we can just move right along, and we're going to start off, I think, with Pam giving a little bit of a presentation showing us what was what, just to refresh everybody's minds. And you got the floor, Pam.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting us. Pam Armstrong. I live at Scotty Hollow in North Chelmsford, and I was the chairman of the Route 40 Study Committee. And I haven't read this report in a couple months, so I'm going to do some of this by memory. Just for the people that are here that may not be familiar, we met for 9 months. We brought in a number of people from the community, a number of stakeholders that we felt would have an opinion on what we were talking about. We went through a number of renditions of possibilities where we can rezone the north side, and what we determined on our final recommendation is that the land there is currently, what's the first 200 feet? RB right now? RC? I'm forgetting. RC. So right now it's RC for the first 200 feet and IA for the balance of the land. And IA allows a lot of industrial possibilities, but no housing possibilities. So we've extended the IA to the street to have the zoning consistent on the north side, and we've asked the planning board to create a CCOD overlay, which would incorporate some housing possibilities in the area to be incorporated up there as well that wouldn't currently exist with the IA as it is. We did look at a lot of different options. We looked at commercial options, a lot of development options, and the committee of 7 consistently voted 6-1 to go with an IA for the entire area with a CCOD overlay, which is considered aging in place, but also allows additional housing opportunities that are not only aging or over 55 opportunities. A lot heavier development up there for housing, so they can reduce the restrictions that are on the current zoning bylaws and give a lot of developers a lot of opportunities for different uses. And it also allows for some retail space, strip malls, restaurants to be incorporated into the same area. The one thing I'd like to add is that we had open session at every one of our meetings for 9 months. We invited anyone that had any opinion or that wanted to share with us some things to consider to come to our meetings. And we did have a lot of input from a lot of people throughout the community, so we did, take that into serious consideration. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that might come up.
Very good. All right. So with that being said, does any of the board members got anything they want to add at this point, or you guys want to just jump right into here from the public?
Good.
Everybody good? All right, why don't we start lining up if anybody from the public wants to get up and speak. You have to come up to the mic and give your name and address and...
Norman LeBrec, 2 Longspur Road. I was looking at this parcel here, and I took a little bit of drive, and from the Chelmsford line to between the highway and the exit and the entrance to the highway is only about 2/10 of a mile. And this is a small triangular piece of land abutting the highway. Apparently, from what I see, what we're going to be allowing is to be able to put the overlay district, which would allow administrative review away from an elected board. This is basically by right. A lot of things could be built on that, providing the owners were willing to sell it, or the town wanted to pay millions of dollars to take it by eminent domain and sell it to a developer. Doesn't seem to make too much sense for that small piece of land. Right now, it has industries that pay taxes to the town of Chelmsford. There's facilities for maintenance of trucks and sell of trailers, and with its close proximity to the highway, basically, except for right in front of them, with the several houses, and across the street, there's nobody else that's being bothered by it. So, so we're going to be allowing by right. In other words, if they fall into this category, that's it. Would we really want this in the town of Chelmsford? Senior living facilities. The senior living facilities, if we would also allow not only the standard sizes, but reduced sizes. So what are we looking for? Some fly-by-night builder who's going to put together 350 square foot apartments? Because of its location. They're not going to be selling units that are going to be in the 300, 400,000, not at that location. So it's going to be El Cheapo. Nursing and conveyance facilities. Well, maybe we'll get those, but those are typically have to be only 1 or 2 stories max to be able to excavate, but to be able to allow removal of people in emergencies. We would allow restaurants, now all of this small piece, medical offices and medical center. If we compare that with the medical center we have in the center of town, that whole medical center will not fit on this parcel of land. So it's not going to be very big. Yeah. Well, yeah. So they needed special permits only if they have a pharmacy or a bank or a retail store or a garage. But other than that, they can go.
But they
we
still have to
certain
come before this board for a site plan
items.
review, for all of it, for a site plan review, for any of it.
That doesn't say this. That says by right. By right doesn't force the person to come here before site review.
Yes, it does.
Okay? So, I don't see us gaining anything. And I see us throwing out or trying to give a little bit of hard time to people who pay taxes. Or if they don't want to sell,
Then it stays the same.
yeah. So where are we going with this? And basically, we've also know what happens when we allow these overlay districts. We had one down on 129. We went through multiple meetings, and we put a provision in that we were not going to be allowing restaurants to compete with those in the center of town. 1 year later, we changed our minds because somebody promised that they might consider building something there if we allow a drive-through things. But we only would allow that on the main drag, not out of sight on the back streets. And we'll kind of wonder what's going on. Right now, we're having another article here, which is going to allow something additional to that area. So, are we going for long-term planning, or are we going for planning for the next year and then we'll replan? What does the town of Chelmsford want? What does this board want? I thought this board and the town of Chelmsford wanted long-term planning. I don't see us going in that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
Jerry Hall, 34 Lovett Lane, beautiful North Chelmsford. When the idea of rezoning was first proposed last year, I asked both the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board, what's the rush? The Selectmen, through their agents Polanski and Cohen, seemed quite content to move ahead. So I want to thank the Planning Board for taking the time to form a committee to study this from all angles. After a year's worth of careful consideration, the committee has come up with a well-balanced plan with an emphasis on housing. It was quite clear from last year's public hearing that the people were not clamoring for more 24-hour gas stations, supermarkets, chain restaurants, banks, hotels, nor for the additional traffic that such commercial development generates. However, Chelmsford does have hundreds of people on waiting lists for senior housing, and demand for ancillary services grows with our aging population. This proposed zoning change addresses the town's needs for housing, not any one developer's needs for commercial expansion. We live in a democracy, and I realize that all votes are not going to be unanimous. But once the vote is done, you accept the vote. You don't badmouth the committee as somehow corrupt, made up only of neighborhood people, or ignorant, not really understanding the issues, or emotional Pollyannas acting just from the heart. Sour grapes, gentlemen, poorly planned, bad form. Now we're hearing from the same town officials who urged us to rush, though we must now delay. Why? Well, for the same reason, so they can get what they want in terms of commercial development. We are urged to wait for the new master plan due next year, or for plans for UMass West Site to be announced. Now, there's plenty of housing demand for both UMass and 40 North to thrive, and this rezoning plan is compliant with our master plan that states that rezoning should not be pursued for revenue purposes alone. The new plan expects no changes in this philosophy. These two arguments are delaying tactics, so the allies of the developer can get another bite at the apple. Or worse yet, a delay hoping that the Massachusetts legislature will try once again to change the threshold for a rezoning vote to a simple majority from the current two-thirds majority. That's a bill that has developers salivating. Keep your eyes on that, folks. Talk to your state reps. So again, thank you to the Route 40 committee members for all your hard work. Thank you to the planning board members for taking control of this rezoning process and keeping it in the capable hands of elected officials. There's one more vote to come, and I urge my fellow citizens, the town meeting members, to vote yes on this rezoning proposal. Vote with the actual people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hi.
I'm Marie Burnham at 255 Groton Road, 2 doors down from the Westford line, right on the corner of Dorse Drive and Groton Road. You keep on calling it Route 40, and that's the state number it was given, but its proper name is the town name of Groton Road. There's a Groton Road, residential road issue. Now, I expected there to be more speaking before public opportunity to talk, so I could get an idea of what plans have been put in by the subcommittee and things like that. I know that there are going to possibly be housing in place. That's great. As I said last time, I'm trying to house in place on my property. I'm age in place. And I'm hearing now restaurants. As one gentleman said, it's only 2/10 of a mile. There are a lot of homes, and a lot of them are on both sides. You want to change us from residential to IA. Not quite sure why that's going, but as long as you can put in the elderly living and the care, that sounds good. I don't know if IA allows that or if you have to do special permits for that. But I really can't see that area being developed commercially. Now, one reason I came up now is because for the past couple of weeks, it looks like you guys have already made up your decision and somebody's already surveying all the land, and they're not surveying properly. I know this because my husband was a traffic safety engineer. He was civil engineering with extensive experience in surveying. He even worked for Chelmsford, Westford, Tingsboro, through what was called NEMAC. Whatever it's called now, I'm not quite sure of their letters. I know where the drill hole to my property is. I know where the drill hole across the street from my property, across from Doris Drive is. I know that there are markers on every property, all the way down. If you look outside your homes, you'll find markers on your property delineating where your property is, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Route 3 wasn't there when my home was delineated. It was delineated so they could move the house from where it was on Groton Road to where it is now, long before I found it to buy it. It used to be where the 3 South entrance ramp is. Okay? So it was still in the same neighborhood. The surveyor, when I told him where the markers were, he was amazed to find one marker in my northwesterly corner. There is no marker in my southwesterly marker because there was too many shrubs there at the time. I have the drill hole, which defines the very corner of my property, drill hole being the legal boundary marker, okay? And my boundary starts there. And my northeasterly marker is gone. When Ronnie built up the little industrial site there, his workers accidentally dug it up. So they left a hole there. Okay, that's since been filled in since I bought the property. The marker he used was the marker of the person who abuts me across the street. The one that when they put in their driveway, accidentally got dug up and thrown back in. Now, right now, from the way they've marked my property on the sides, I can tell, one, they've taken town property about 2 feet against the street. Okay? They've gone into Nancy Lazelle's property.
Just 1 second, the surveying of what they're surveying out there for, we have no idea what they're doing.
Well,
We
whatever
don't-
they're doing,
we
they're
don't
taking
control that.
property. They're taking property from the town.
Then they're not taking anything from anywhere because when they do their plans, everything pretty much is already set. There's markers that they're grabbing locations off, and what you might think they're doing, they may have a hub right next to
Told
it.
me what he was
It's-
doing. He was surprised to find the drill hole, which is on my actual
I understand that. We're asking for input and concerns on the zoning change, not on people
And this all has to do
surveying.
with what they're taking. Are
Okay.
they taking town property for what they're planning to do?
No.
Okay, there's 220 across my neighbor's yard. He said it was 247. I know that along the wetlands, the town owned a strip. Are they claiming the town property? Where's the town to protect the town property? Before any elderly complexes go in, before any restaurants or banks are proposed, I want the town to mark out its property so it's not usurped by somebody else.
Okay. Colleen, could you make a note of that to get a hold of engineering and make sure they go out and survey Groton Road in that area?
Please. We don't
Please.
need private industry doing it incorrectly with markers that have been moved that were not properly put back. Okay?
Yeah.
And in doing this, and also the wetland considerations, are any wetlands considerations being taken into consideration upon any of the proposals? Are they gonna put all kinds of commerce right up against the wetlands?
They will not. Everything will have to go before the Conservation Commission
Okay?
and the Mass DEP rules.
So those will-
Everything will be done above board. Nothing
the
is gonna, there's no shortcuts being taken.
I'm not saying the town's taking shortcuts, I'm saying people seem to be cutting into the town's property. I know the town engineer a few years back told me that the center line isn't exactly where it's supposed to be. It was painted wrong.
The center line of the road means absolutely nothing. The layout of the
Center
road
line
is what
on
they
the
work
road
off of.
Is what is, well, yeah, the stones, the drill holes are important. The markers are important. But the rule of thumb is 25 feet from the center line on each way belongs to the town.
No.
Yes.
The layout of the road, I believe Route 40, Groton Road, is probably a 60-foot layout. I might be wrong. I'm guessing at that because most state roads, Katie, does that sound about right? I don't know. Yeah, but it's, so in that layout, the road could be all the way over to one side, could be all the way over to the other side, it could be anywhere between them bounds. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the middle.
He checked my drill hole. He checked the marker across the street because he was trying to determine if the tree I was telling him that was dead, that was going to fall in the road, belonged to me or you guys. When he saw that it belonged to you guys, he said it was too expensive to take down. If it belonged to me, he probably would have forced me to take it down.
Okay,
Okay? Which is where I got this comment from.
yep,
I probably still have the email concerning this tree in my,
okay. Are we going in a direction
but
here? or we're
this is
just-
all part of Groton Road and what's happening to it. Okay? I don't want to see pieces of this property shaved off, pieces of that property shaved off because things weren't done right.
They're not going to be. They can't do that. Everything is on deeds, everything is recorded.
Right.
You just can't go and change property lines.
Exactly. But I have stakes that are basically doing that, which is not making me happy. I have these poles with these red things, and most of them are in place, but the beginning and the end are not. I know one's on Nancy's property and one's on town's property,
Okay.
and a piece of it cuts through my property.
If, just a bit of advice for you, if you feel that those bounds are not in the appropriate place, hire an engineering firm to come in and reset your bounds.
So because this is happening, I have to go to additional expenses to protect my property on top of everything else.
I'd say pretty much,
My husband's
yeah.
dead, so he can't do it, even though he had the
Right.
experience to do it. I even got his plumb bob down in his desk where he left it, okay? But you don't use markers that were moved and then thrown back in place at a slant.
Right. What they typically will do, they'll go out and locate a marker, and it'll say on the plan, the bound was located, and it would also say the bound was located and/or set, saying that it is where it's supposed to be.
After he made his focal point, I showed him the drill holes, and he was surprised to find it. And he was amazed to see my northwesterly marker. It's an actual, you know the markers I'm talking, the stone that go about this deep into the ground?
Mm-hmm.
He was amazed to see it.
Maria, besides the surveying issue, I believe Colleen's going to address that through engineering. Do you have any other concerns regarding Route 40 and possibly the zoning of it?
The wetlands. Also, I know that one of my neighbors has access through one of those properties with water pipes underneath. Are all these things being taken into consideration on the plans that they're going to propose? I mean, I don't even know what the final proposals are going to be. I wasn't able to make the meeting.
We have, there is no plan.
There's no plan.
There is no plan of anything going on, and I've spoken to the owners of the properties up, the big properties up there, and they have no intention of selling.
Right.
So I don't think you're gonna see, in your lifetime or my lifetime, I don't think we're gonna see anything there, to be
Okay.
perfectly honest with you.
Okay.
This is just a zoning change to plan for the future.
Okay. I figure I have about 5 more years, so if you can guarantee about 5 more years. I'm good.
Give you 4.5.
4.5. I've already surpassed my mother. I've already surpassed my mother on her stroke and surpassed my grandparents. I'm going to be 64 this year. All I want is to get to 68. That way the home's fully mine and I can give it to my children.
Thank you.
Glenn, just for your information, Groton is an old county road, and it's a 50-foot wide
50 foot,
stretch.
thank you. Good guess. 40 to 60, right? I was right in the middle. Anybody else that wants to get up and speak about the Route 40? Going once? Oh, here we go.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Sam Chase, and I'm a member of the Economic Development Committee in Chelmsford, and I, this evening, am speaking on behalf of the Economic Development Committee. Now, you know that the EDC is already on record with your board relative to our concerns with the rezoning proposal, so I'm not going to rehash those this evening. Article 25, as you know, proposes to make minor changes to the current underlying zoning, and we are talking strictly the north side now, Mr. Chairman, along with adding a continuing care community overlay district that will allow for the inclusion of age-in-place residential development. So as residents, we are asked to accept some zoning changes that, in our view, the Economic Development Committee's view, will result in little additional economic benefit for Chelmsford. The Economic Development Committee, as its charter, would like to see a more robust commercial development for this area that can ultimately contribute more tax dollars to the town and reduce the pressure on escalating residential tax bills, which, as we all know, is a real problem for many Chelmsford homeowners. So we do continue to believe that the proposed rezoning reflects a missed economic opportunity, especially with regard to the north side. We believe that additional study is warranted with a focus on determining what zoning will produce the best economic outcome for all residents. Now, we do recognize that any economic development must be done keeping the sometimes conflicting interests and concerns of all residents in mind, and it must not be confined to any one specific interest. We also believe that any recommendation that focuses on highest and best economic use should be supported by relevant market and financial data and should be made in consideration of other viable redevelopment opportunities that may exist in other parts of the town. So the Economic Development Committee, will be voicing these concerns to the Finance Committee and the Selectmen as our input to their recommendation process, and we will as well speak to these concerns at the upcoming town meeting session. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Okay, do we have anyone else that wants to get up and, come on up, Pam. Oh,
You can get in queue.
So I did want to comment that, again, we met for 9 months. We had the chairman of the Economic Development Committee on our board, and every member of that committee were welcome to come join us to share their input, to participate in the discussions to help us form our recommendation. And nobody from their committee, as far as I can remember, other than the chairman who sat on the board, came to any of those meetings. So they're asking for more time, and they had 9 months of open session that they could have participated in. We did look at economic development. We did look at, we talked to other people within the town. We did look at how it was going to affect our other businesses in town, our small businesses in the area. It was not a small neighborhood committee. We looked at everything town-wide and how it was going to affect this area. So I think if the EDC had been there and had participated and had joined in our discussions, their outcome and their report may have come out a lot differently.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Scott Rummel. I live at 24 Lovett Lane. I'd like to set the record straight that the documentation and the recommendation that the Economic Development Committee submitted misrepresented the quotations of the 2010 Master Plan. I think the words that you chose were paraphrasing the Master Plan, when in fact the Master Plan said any rezoning to the Groton Road Route 40 area should be done in consideration of all the town's needs, and it specifically stated that you should develop a solution that was amenable to the residents, not simply take the residents into consideration, but to develop a solution that was amenable. And that's not what the Economic Development Committee report said, and I'd like the record to reflect that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
George Zarulis, Princeton Street. Question, are you on the overlay yet, or are you just talking about Route 40?
We're just on the Route 40 stuff right now.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else on the Route 40, Groton Road?
My name is Andrea Gauntlett, 264 Groton Road. So I am a resident. I've heard from nobody, from any committee, about how this affects me. I have spoken at previous meetings and how they're using, I'm not sure which side I'm on the even side. So I think it's the south.
Closer to Drum Hill or closer to Nashua?
Closer to Westford. So on the even side of Route 60, Route 40. I don't know, is that the north, south side? South side, okay. So I'm opposite Murray,
Okay.
and we've been used as a buffer for whatever's going on for your commercial. And I don't know what's happening, or what the most recent meetings have accomplished, or what the proposals are. But I will tell you that none of you have come knocking on my door asking me how this is affecting me or my family. Neither were you there for the asphalt thing that now we're pinned between. Since 2008, I've been a prisoner in my home, unable to make any improvements for fear of loss of the money that I would put in any improvements, and I'm just kind of stuck in limbo.
Okay.
So I am looking for a resolution. I have not heard from anybody here, so I can't say that you guys have done your full job.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, you didn't identify yourself? Who are you?
Pam Armstrong,
And from?
that was the chairman of the
Chairman
committee.
of the committee, okay.
Yep.
Body Hollow.
And the committee had a whole report. If you want a copy of the report, I'm sure Pam will get you a copy so you can sit down and read the entire thing. And
Yeah, I mean, I've watched and I've
Yeah.
seen what's gone on in these
so you
things.
know, you
I know a
kind
little
of knew
bit.
when the meetings were and everything.
I do.
Did you attend any of their meetings?
I don't believe that they were held fairly. So that will be an issue going forward.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. Anybody else on Route 40? If not, we're going to move on to the next. Where are we? The next article is. I'll get my glasses on here so I can see it. Where are we?
I should do the CCOD. CCCOD.
The CCCOD, Article 22. Does the board have any input we want to throw out on this before we go to public input or public hearing?
We'll be circling back though, right?
To what?
A little later to discuss it as a board? Yes.
Yes, yes. All right, we don't have anything on this. On Article 22, Community Care, Continuing Care Community Overlay District. Does anybody from the public wish to speak on this?
I think this is the 129.
No,
Nope.
no.
This
Where
is,
was this located?
This is up off of Route 40. This is the actual overlay.
The CEIOD.
CCCOD.
Oh, no, okay. No, I thought we just discussed that one.
Yeah, no,
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 the
we
other
were
one, okay.
discussing the actual Route 40 revisions to the zoning changes. This is another zoning change, the community care, or the continuing care community overlay district.
Okay, sure, I made my comments on that.
Okay, yeah, you already good, you already chimed in on that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're good. Thank you. Anybody else wanna?
George Zaharos, Princeton Street. I just want a clarification. Under the CCOD, you have section 195. I'm reading from what I got in online. 195, 148.
Yep.
Is that correct? So on another article, you have the same numbering system. So is that an oversight, or is that something that's one replacing the other?
Colleen, you
Or
got an
what's-
answer for that one?
if it is an oversight, we will correct it. And George, you're awesome.
Is that,
for
it's
pointing
the
it
one
out.
with the historic,
The
has the
historic
same,
is
similar numbering system.
looking.
It's because parallel paths.
Okay, so
Yep.
I want to bring it to attention so it's
Okay.
straightened out prior.
Thank
to
you.
reading.
Purpose and intent.
All right, anybody else on the CCCOD? Hearing none, we're gonna skip down to the next one now, which is Article
23,
I'm trying to find it.
third page, middle.
2, 3 in the middle. Article 23. To amend the CEIOD to allow multifamily in industrial zoning districts. Article 23. The board want to throw anything on that at this point or wait to the end?
I could talk a little bit
Sure,
about it.
go ahead.
About the rationale on it. When we created the CEIOD, we had a lot of discussion. We were originally going to include multifamily in all industrial areas. We did include multifamily in all commercial areas under the CEIOD. The reason we left it out at the time that we created it was a concern over losing industrial space to housing. What we're seeing today is that currently and foreseeably for the next probably 10 years going forward, we have a higher demand for housing than we do for additional industrial space. Our vacancy rates are very low in housing today, and there's very high demand. And our vacancy rates in our current industrial space is certainly higher than we would like it to be. Looking at the current industrial areas, almost every one of them currently has some multifamily housing already embedded in them. So the feeling was that there really isn't a reason to keep it isolated because actual use has already dictated that it's an acceptable usage within the industrial areas in terms of people will live there and choose to live there.
Okay.
So that's the rationale
gist of it.
behind this. That's
Okay.
the gist of it.
All right, we'll see if anybody out there wants to speak on this. Looking,
This cover the, owned by Two Larkspur again. Is this what covers down on the 129 development? Oh,
This does not cover 129. 129 already is covered under the BAOD, which does already allow multifamily housing. So the one industrial area that would not be affected by this at all is Route 129.
okay, so that's the one big one we have. The other ones are little small ones.
The little areas. Yeah.
Are we is the board here on the same page as the Board of Selectmen that we just recently hired a lady to go out and sell industrial, to sell to our REITs the benefits of Chelmsford? And these REITs basically are the ones that own these buildings, and the people that have owned these buildings are people that run a business that is geared towards industrial business things, not housing. There is out there other groups that go for housing, but I don't think we're on the same page here with where we have a lady going out at our taxpayers' expense to sell to the owners or the firm, the REIT firms that that deal principally in the business and light industry. I just wonder, where are we going here?
well, the woman that I think you're referring to, that was hired by the town, is out there trying to bring more business to town,
Yes.
to occupy some of the vacant properties that are out there, to try to bring more tax dollars to the town, to try to make the town flourish through filling all of its buildings up, and the people that come to fill those buildings are going to need places to live, and that's where the housing part falls into play. And on areas like the 129, it's all part of the same.
Well, what I'm saying is, the people who own the buildings are REITs, and their business is light industry, not housing.
I think a lot of the people that own the business, own the buildings over there, are development companies that will put anything in them to turn a buck.
Well, they seem to be, when I looked up to see if there was any I wanted to invest in, I found out that there's a demarcation. They are not the same businesses.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, again, I'm Marie Burnham at 255 Groton Road. Okay, right at the corner of Doris Drive and Groton Road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's been Groton Road since Lowell was still on horse and buggy. Okay, It became Route 40 when Route 3 went in 1961. Okay, because they numbered it since it intersected a state road. Now, you said multiple families. Are we talking 2 and 3 families, or are we talking 24 units crammed onto an acre of land, right next to wetlands, or right next to the highway? What are we talking about multifamilies, and where?
Multifamily development is anything bigger
Than two
than a
families.
two-family.
So would you allow 24 units on an acre next to the wetlands?
It's multifamily, whatever the underlying zoning would dictate, that's what would be
We haven't,
put on that. We haven't, like I said before, there is nothing on the board here for a plan coming forward for anything that I see in the foreseeable future.
Okay.
To-
Now,
to
I'd like to
fulfill
know
what you're
what the
looking at.
I'd like to know what the overlays are gonna be applied to, what sections of that 2/10 of a mile.
Nan, could you chime in on that? That's what you,
So the CCCOD, Article 22, overlays the entire area on the north side
So it overlays
of
my
Groton
house.
Road. It
Oh,
overlays your house,
Okay.
all right? That area is, all industrial areas are already overlaid with the CEIOD. So that would also be an overlay.
And the CEIOD would be the multifamily?
The CEIOD permits multifamily, well,
Okay.
would permit multifamily if Article 23 goes through. Article 22 for the CCCOD also includes multifamily.
And that's also over my property.
That is proposed to be all of the IA area on the
like-
north side of Route 3,
So turning my-
including the frontage.
So turning my side on the north into IA, those 200 feet, you're basically telling me that you can now box me in, I can no longer enjoy my yard, I may have 48 cars next door coming and going day and night with 24 family units on one side, and you're trying to put a gas
Yeah.
station and a restaurant
Yeah,
in
go
between.
didn't you have height restrictions on the side of the road?
We
And-
do.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Please
do.
explain that, because you're not,
Yeah.
you're losing it.
We do. So
Get 24 units in 2 stories.
the CCCOD has a two-story limit along Groton Road.
You can still get 24 units in with that. I've
You
seen it
you
happen.
can't, two. Hmm?
3 stories, 35.
Is it? I thought it was two on the abutting properties. Was it changed? No, it is 3 stories. Which is the same thing that residential is today. So if it stays residential C, they can still put in 3-story buildings.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The Victorian's a
Yeah,
3-story.
that's right.
I mean, I fell in love with the 4-story
Yeah.
building on Route 113, right out of Lowell. It also had a basement, so I guess it's 5 stories. But it was still residential. But what I'm saying is it was a one family. You have a unit, an area that's been solidly one family. You want to turn it into aging in place. That's nice. That's nice. That's very nice. Okay? More residents. More issues we can fight with more residents. Okay? Because the neighborhood would be a little bit bigger. But I don't see why you would want to turn my section of Chelmsford into a piece of inner Lowell. Okay?
And I would have to say that our zoning doesn't
Allow that?
allow that.
Okay. Okay, because I don't want like 24 units keeping me up all through the day and all through the night, with a gas station and a bank and a restaurant.
That's not what's proposed in this.
okay, thank you. Anybody else?
George Zaharoulis, Princeton Street. Question, it just says that, and maybe I'm not getting the whole picture, but it just says that you're going to allow residential in IA under the CIOD.
Yeah.
Did you have discussion on setback requirements? Because the CIOD says that it's the underlying zoning. Well, there's no underlying zoning for residential and industrial, as far as I know. So have you addressed setbacks to other commercial properties? Have you addressed any of that, and lot sizes and height restrictions?
George, I don't believe that we addressed different setbacks or restrictions for residential in commercial when we put through the CEIOD, so I don't believe this would be any different. The underlying zoning would...
It addresses it in one of the first paragraphs, and it says the underlying zoning stays place. So there is some residential setbacks for those things, and some of the underlying zoning, the RCs, the RBs. So I would think that you need to, from past history from the board.
I think an easy fix on that is just put that statement in with it.
I think you need to look at, what those setbacks are, because now you're talking industrial,
Right.
Which you're talking more industrial type buildings, truck traffic, that type of thing, and then you're putting residential next to it. So I would think that you want to look at what the setback requirements are, as well as some height requirements and that type of thing. So
Okay.
that's my comment.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Gillis, 248 Barton Road. My question was, on the overlay, if they want to do the housing, does it just go housing? Or does it go housing and industrial? Does it get intertwined is what I'm saying?
Answer that?
Have to use
Yeah,
one or
sure.
the
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
Or is it one or the other?
You have to
So
use
the
one.
usage is on a lot-by-lot basis in terms of the plans that are brought forward for development. Unless a developer joins lots, buys up, contiguous lots and joins lots, any plan that would come forward would be based on current lot sizes.
Okay. But could
Yes,
one,
If you have industrial,
Yeah.
you're not being kicked out. You can
That's
stay
right.
there. Everybody that's doing.
I'm
what
on the
they-
other side, so I don't care. The other side sucks,
Okay.
right?
No, but I mean,
no.
nothing changes for the people that are there. They can
That's
stay
right.
doing what they're doing right now forever. If they sold their property off and it went for a residential development, most likely, I would have a hard time seeing industrial going back in there. What we do allow is, which I think we're kind of losing here when people talking about restaurants, if you had an aging housing thing, I don't know if many of you in the Chelmsford Commons, they got a restaurant inside there for the people.
Right.
If you're having aging in place people, you want to have some facilities available to them.
Right.
And that's what some of this stuff is coming up with. So that we're not talking a 99 restaurant, because we already debated that. We're not going to have a freestanding building. There's a couple other issues.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to rein us in that we don't get lost too much in the.
Well, no, I was basically trying to say is, if you have, say they bought the whole side,
Yep.
they can mix and match residential with
They can-
industrial?
They could take and put their own lot lines in if they wanted, if they own the whole side, and divide the property up. In theory, would somebody do that? Probably not.
Right.
But,
I was just,
but it's possible. They could join it and redivide it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? All right, not, oops.
Look out.
Watch it, Mike. You get run over.
Okay.
We got a latecomer.
Mike is in the house.
So, sorry, Andrea Gauntlett, 264 again. I just have a question about what is allowed industrial.
Industry,
What can be there?
you can have a trucking company, you can have a machine shop, you can have,
There's a whole
there's a whole list
whole
of,
list.
that we have in the back
Any-
of the zoning book. It's Article, I think it's Article 1.
Oh, you got it in the back of
It's
that?
called the use table.
can
It
list this
tells
right
you
there.
what's allowed by.
Yeah, he's got it for you.
there we go, we got it right here.
Okay.
So in the
So-
limited industrial,
Do you want me to read?
you can have an Alzheimer's facility, assisted living, independent living, congregate living, accessory to residential use, exempt use, family daycare, cemetery, municipal facilities except garages, municipal garages, storage or repair shops, essential services, hospitals, hospitals, helipad, accessory to hospital, commercial non-exempt agriculture, commercial non-exempt farm stand, animal clinic, kennel, nursing home, funeral home, motel, parking lot, a parking garage, office, medical officer center, medical clinic, indoor commercial entertainment or recreation, wireless community facility, fairs, carnivals, health club, daycare, family daycare home, solar photovoltaic cell commercial, medical marijuana treatment center, light manufacturing, earth removal contractor shop, outdoors, indoors contractor shops, wood operation, retail sale of goods produced on the premises, self-storage, a bakery, research and development, and a parking garage structure.
So I would be unsure of what the parking garage would be used for, since there's really nothing there. So that being said, with any of these coming in, a helipad, a hospital, what then would the South Side residents have a say in when it came to presenting the proposal for building there?
You'd have a say on it because everything will come here for a site plan review and in a public hearing.
Will we have as much say as we did on the zoning for this?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's not a lot. Okay, thank you.
Well, probably.
So industrial.
No, Glenn.
Industrial.
So this,
Consulting, 9 months of meetings in.
Yeah, I've had my say, and it was not considered. And it was like, and I know my neighbors have also come upon and asked for certain things to be rezoned on the south side, and that has not been addressed. However, that being said, I will say that when the asphalt company went in, they went in as a gravel company, thinking that they could just do that.
Nothing to do with
Different
Oh, it
town.
has everything to do with you because you had a say. It abut to you. You guys had an opportunity and you did not. However, it went in as a light industrial and it's an asphalt plant. So just residents beware that that is what could come across the street from wherever you guys live. So it's optional.
We don't allow asphalt plants.
We don't allow them in
Allow asphalt
Chelmsford.
plants. Hi, my name is Nance Gillis. I live at 248 Groton Road, which is on the south side, and I just want to say a few things. A year ago, I got a letter stating that this is what we're going to do, and this is when the meeting was. I went to that meeting. I went to the following meeting because it was redone because there were too many people, so it ended up being in the center of town at the Arts Place. From there, they went to the school. At the school, Mike was chairperson at the time, if I'm not mistaken, right? Okay. And you said at that meeting, we're going to make a committee, and we're going to try to sit down, and we're going to try to do this in 4 weeks. Let's get it done. So I applied online on the town site. I was then at the next meeting, and it was said, okay, these are the people that applied. These are the people we picked. I came to the first meeting. We ended up being here for 9 months. Every single one of the meetings was listed on the town site. Just like everything else, it is possible for you to get texts and emails to let you know what is there. I was on the committee. I am still on the committee. I am on the committee until after the town thingy.
Town meeting.
Thank you.
Thingy, I like.
Thingy, yes, my technical terms. So when people are saying, I didn't know, my job was not to knock on doors. It was to sit in this room and find a fair thing. And before anybody says that I am not a fair person, I am the one that got my brother-in-law in touch with the developer so that he could move out of the area. So I'm getting really angry, and I am sorry, and I know this has nothing to do with what you're talking about at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nance.
Okay. All right. If we hear no one else wants to speak on the multifamily COID, we're going to move on to the pre-existing non-conforming single and two-family structures. Article 24. Does the board have anything that they want to throw in on this? If not, we'll go right into public comments on this one. Article 24.
Should we do a little explanation what this is so people understand what we're doing?
It probably wouldn't hurt. Probably wouldn't hurt.
Who's gonna explain this one?
You want me to?
Yeah, you're pretty good at it.
Thanks.
Yeah, because this one still confuses me.
What this is like in the Westlands, there's a lot of really small lots. And every time anybody tries to do anything, they have to go in front of the ZBA. And the ZBA is being overrun by a lot of these issues. And it's not these people's fault. They built the house. The house was built when it was conforming to all the regulations. And the regulations have changed around the house. So now what we're trying to do is get a means for people that have these pre-existing houses with these small lots to get the setbacks back to when the house was originally built. So that they're not, the houses in the Westlands, the quarter acre, less, it's hard to put them to a 1 acre standard. And the ZBA has to hear every time somebody wants to put a porch or window, anything on their house. So we're trying to give the ZBA a little relief, and that's where this has come from. The ZBA has been, we've talked to them about this. So that's where that's coming from. And that's where this article started with. Just so you understand, we're trying to take and make it so that if your house was built in the early 30s, 20s, 30s, you'd be going more to that setbacks and distances than you would be to the 2019 setbacks.
Henry, I'd like to add to that too,
Good.
because I work for the ZBA as well. We were getting 14, 18 applications, and most of the applications were, all of the applications, I should say, I went back and did the history, were all approved. And it was an expense that the residents, we felt didn't need to go through. The bylaw in general for the pre-existing non-conforming structures was on a sliding scale based on the lot size, and that was basically Chelmsford's attempt at the anti-McMansion law. So when we see that that was not becoming a problem and that these requests were reasonable, this is where this came from. So we decided to go back to when the subdivisions were built, what the zoning was at the time, and the zoning board thought that was a good idea since they regularly approve all of this stuff. So it's really going to help the residents with the cost, and hopefully let them be able to improve their properties without the burden.
Very good. All right, anybody from the public want to speak?
Pam Armstrong, quick question. So people would come to the building inspector to get a building permit versus going to the Board of Appeals.
Yes.
If he felt something, even though the pre-existing zoning would allow it, but it didn't make a lot of sense to him and he had a little question, can he say no and bring it to the Board of Appeals, or he can't do anything?
The way Tony used to do it, he used to allow, if somebody came in and their house was built in 1950, he'd allow what the 1950 rule was. Was he right in doing that? Yeah, kind of. In the one way he was, but was he legally right? Probably not.
Okay.
So
the
Pam,
new inspector wants it done
By
the books, and this is how we can bring that back by the book.
and just because I work in the building department, the building inspector regularly writes denial letters for building permits.
So if he felt it wasn't
And that activates the
appropriate.
zoning board. So if they want to appeal the building commissioner's decision, they come to the zoning board.
Thank you,
So
that's a good explanation. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on this one?
I was looking at the Norman LeBrecq to whisper, and I'm looking at the front for buildings built after 1961. Well, that includes all of the Hicks building in town, as well as several other buildings. I don't think that the RARB 40-foot front between the front door and the road or the sidewalk was adhered to at that time. All of the site plans that Hicks put out clearly showed dimensions. I think we have a problem with this article, that we're putting a whole bunch of people in non-compliance.
No,
No.
we're actually doing the opposite.
What we're doing is just the opposite of that.
Well,
The
I
town
think
right
you're-
now is 80% non-compliant on
Well, right
zoning.
now, if you use these numbers, you will not have achieved that.
You're not in compliance now.
Well, okay.
We're trying to bring them back into compliance.
Well, you're not doing it.
We are.
40 feet will not work for most of
If
the owners of the
If
building.
there was a zoning back then, what that chart up there is, 1961 to present, the zoning changed in 1961. So RA was 40 feet for a front yard, 25 for a side yard, and 30 for a rear.
With.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, the
And
rear.
again,
the
just,
rear is seldom a problem, but the front and the side.
well,
would
what's
be.
happening
What I'm
is,
saying is, the board needs to look at these and see if the objective of this is to bring all of these houses, now I'm talking about thousands of them in town, into compliance. They
That's,
should look at
that's
these
what we're
numbers.
working on doing.
no, but it's not
Before-
really. It's not really working that way. So these are this, what's showing on the screen is historical zoning.
Yeah.
Okay, that was in place at the time places were built. The zoning has changed now to be the RA from 61 to present that's up there with the side setbacks, the rear, and the front. That's what every standard for even a 10,000 square foot lot is for now. So there is a ton of pre-existing non-conforming. How the town handles that is we deal with what's on the ground. And so with this, they don't have to meet the current zoning because it was built to a different zoning. So they might have had a 10-foot setback that was from 1938 to 1954. So we go to the house and look at the date it was built, and we have historical data showing us what the zoning at the time was. And we would, if this goes through, we will have a 10-foot side setback for a house that was built in 1953.
Where now you mean it was 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it won't be, so it'll alleviate the burden on everybody in town that has a pre-existing non-conforming house or lot. So they will not be automatically sent, the whole Westlands neighborhood is 15,
Yeah.
12,000 square foot lots. So those poor people have been coming to us and spending,
When I'm talking about basically 40,000 square foot lots that will not meet the 40-foot requirement.
If they
It's okay,
don't
we
meet
still-
it now,
But we
hold a
still
second.
don't, we deal with what's on the ground. If it's
Okay.
already at 38 feet, then that's what we deal with. It's already pre-existing non-conforming. That's what that means, that they don't meet that requirement.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Okay.
Leave it at that.
Anybody else? Nobody's moving, so we're gonna move on to the next one, which is, where are we on the next one? Article 25, planned open space development.
Can I say something on this one?
Henry's gonna give you a little narrative on this one as well.
There's been a lot of talk on Facebook about this from people that really don't know what's going on here. What we're trying to do is, the open space provision of the law has not been being used a lot. There's not many 10-acre parcels of land left in town. I know I'm one of the few that own them. When I looked at the article and they actually looked at my piece of land, I realized I didn't actually conform to most of it because my land was put together in separate lots. I actually looked at this as an opportunity for us to take and get more open space in town. Right now, 5 acres, 5 lots. Nothing changes. This allows you to do cluster zoning, and it also will allow you to take and donate another piece of land somewhere else in the town so that you can get the cluster zoning. There is advantages to cluster zoning. Less streets, less development cost. we're trying to get some more open spaces. I don't know where this whole Facebook came, other than somebody not knowing what they were talking about went off on it. But we are trying to get more open space with this law because there's very few 10-acre parcels left. That being said,
And Henry, talk about the, so if it's a 5-acre parcel,
You
you're
can-
only allowed 5.
5, I did, I
That's
said
it.
that. That's it.
5 is all you
Five.
get.
There's no
And they can be
bonus.
smaller lots, but you have, the rest has to be open space.
The rest has to be open space. And they can donate land that's somewhere else in the town if the
That's
town
new.
finds that it works for the town. But that's all up to the board to make a decision when it comes in front of us. If it works, it works. If it doesn't,
The last
it
one we
doesn't.
did was Alyssa Way, just as an example, if anybody wants to look at Alyssa Way.
So, that being said, we're trying to get a little clarification so people understand what's going on. We're not trying to develop bigger pieces. We are trying to condense it, try to save more open space, and that's what's going on. Other than that, come on
All
up.
right,
We'll gladly answer your questions.
Anybody want to talk? Come on up. Not seeing anybody moving. Sure, Pam.
We already have open space development on the books.
Yep.
How does this change?
This
what's
is
currently
changing it
there?
from 10 to 5.
Okay.
Basically the same thing, just smaller. Okay. Nobody on it? All right, so we're going to move on to Article 26, which is, where are we?
Historic.
Historic.
Nan,
Historic. Nan,
you're
you're up.
Historic. Okay, the purpose of this article. During the development of the 2010 master plan, one of the strong messages that was heard during public input sessions was a desire to maintain the historic and cultural look and feel of the town. A number of activities have come out of that. A number of action items were identified in the 2010 master plan, and various committees have taken on those actions. One of the really big ones was the development of a historical and cultural preservation plan. It was done, I don't know, I want to say somewhere about 2013 or so. Another one of the actions was to develop a way to promote the preservation of our historic structures via zoning changes. This has been in the works for a long, long time. So I, as a representative of the planning board, have been working with the historical commission for, I'm going to say, about 4 years now on this. We did take an article to town meeting last year. It had some unacceptable clauses in it, and we worked those out. We have continued to work on it. In summary, preservation of existing historical structures has to be at the expense of the owners. There is no way that we can legally mandate owners to maintain those properties. We have the authority under state law to put a cooling off period into an owner's desire to demolish those properties. The Historical Commission can impose a 1-year moratorium on raising the building, but they can't prevent it. And we've lost a number of structures over the last 5 years because the cost of renovating these structures is expensive. So, from a zoning standpoint, we can't prevent destruction of the properties. The only thing that we can do is provide an incentive for owners to make the investment to maintain them. This article provides two incentives to offset the costs of renovations, bringing them up to code, and maintaining the structures. It focuses on residential properties. It provides an incentive by allowing one additional living unit in these properties, generally a rental unit. So it offsets the cost of renovations by providing the income from an additional rental unit. And the other incentive it provides is that it allows separation of properties to take off a part of the land of one of these properties to create an undersized lot. Neither one of these incentives are permitted under standard zoning. The payback to the town is that to qualify for either one of these incentive programs, the owner must put the property under historic preservation restrictions. The minimum time period of that protection is 30 years. So there's two different preservation restriction plans. One is held by the town, the other is held by the state. If it qualifies under the state, it can be placed under a longer than 30-year term. If it does not qualify under the state, it can only be up to 30 years. The properties must be deemed of historic value in order to qualify for this. So this is not an age-based bonus. This is a value-based bonus. I don't have my slides here today. I know I had provided some slides when we first went through this of how many properties in town currently qualify for this.
I have the maps.
You have them?
I have the maps.
If you've got that map, I think there were two PowerPoint slides.
Historic map.
You have that one?
It's a separate article.
So this article moves the current article that allows a two-family in an older property, older residential property. It doesn't change it in any way. It adds the bonus of a three-family for qualifying properties, and it adds the bonus of splitting a property for qualifying properties. So let's see if I can read this.
I can
Okay. So today, of older properties that have already qualified under the conversion that would continue to be covered, there's 279 properties that have already been converted to two families or more. In addition to those, we have a potential of 625 properties that would qualify under today's bylaw to be split into two families because of the age of these properties. Under the bonus of this bylaw, 108 of those 625 properties could qualify as a three-family. These are properties that are already on our rolls of historically significant properties. And the maps are color-coded.
All right. Thank you for that. And do we have any public input on this? Anybody want to speak? George?
Oh, well, yeah, we do that.
George Zaharo's Princeton Street. My question basically, and 195-152B is what I have a problem with, and that is allowing that they be able to split a lot and create two lots at 50% of the reduction of what the underlying zoning is required. At a minimum, one of the lots should at least meet the criteria set forth in the zoning, if not both. Allowing someone to split a lot and giving them 50% reduction is huge, especially in a neighborhood, typically that's a 40,000 square foot neighborhood. If they have a lot that's 41,000, now you get two lots at 20,000. To me, it's just wrong. It should be, at minimum, one should at least be the full ride. I think both should qualify to meet the underlying zoning. My other question is basically, and I didn't see it in here and I'm not sure how it's handled, is that let's say I'm the owner of a home and I apply and I get it under historical, and then 10 years down the road I decide to sell it, someone else buys it. Who's enforcing the regulations? If the second person B, buys this home and decides he wants to do something different to the home, put an addition on it, who's enforcing the historic regulations is what my question is. And then if it becomes so onerous to them because they want to do it a certain way, how is it prevented from demolition by neglect? So I would like to know how this is enforced, is what I would like to know.
Okay.
How are you? Ken Tassi, 60K Street. I live in one of those houses, and I don't want people to divide their lots up. I agree with him. It should be, one of the lots should at least adhere to the rules. I mean, I just think that it's going to change it. Now you got two families that are going to turn into three families. Why even have zoning laws? I mean, I just don't agree with this at all. And I have a property that fits this. If I do it and then I move, it's not going to go to the next person. No one's going to keep up with that. So I don't like any of it.
Thank you. Oh.
I have a question which will probably show I don't really know what I'm talking about on this subject. But what is an SU-30 vehicle? Can we use something that a citizen would understand?
Fire truck.
It's a box.
Thank you. Could we change that one to a fire truck? Are we talking about a ladder or a pumper?
Whichever one you want.
No, it's a
standard.
Qualifies as an ambulance.
An ambulance, okay.
Yeah.
An ambulance, I'm sorry. An ambulance, not a fire truck. An SU-50 is a fire truck, right?
Well, I think they have to call it out in our split path?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the SU-40 is
Okay.
deliveries, UPS,
Yep.
ambulance.
Okay.
Could we just change the wording so not only people like me, but also the board knows exactly what they're talking about?
That probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
We could just put it in parentheses.
Yeah.
Put
Colleen,
it in parentheses because it is a standard, a very well-defined standard.
Could you just put in parentheses on the SU-30, Colleen?
What, I'm sorry,
Just
what?
put in parentheses on the SU-30.
Yeah, just so it
That
makes a
it
little more
would
sense.
mean a UPS truck or a ambulance or
Okay. We'll put a side note on it.
Yeah,
Something,
put a
anything.
side note on it.
Yeah.
Hi, Pam.
Leave SU-30, that's the standard.
I seem to have a lot to say tonight.
Yeah. You always.
Sounds like you're getting ready to run again.
So I have a question. So let's say, and I don't agree with subdividing the lot to a smaller parcel, I agree with George. But let's say someone did that and they built a home on that smaller parcel. Could they, in theory, let that property in the front just deteriorate, live in their new house, and then eventually demo that piece that they didn't want in the first place?
I would imagine.
They could, but they'd be heavily fined for it.
So how is that a benefit to the owner of this property that if they can't afford to renovate it, they're just going to get fined for it? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
The fines add up to more than the renovation. They're pretty steep.
So I don't agree with this article.
Well,
Thank you.
How you doing? Ken Tassi, 60 Gay Street. I always hear fines coming out, whether it's multifamilies or apartment complexes. But then when I go to find out, no one's ever been fined. So has anyone been fined for this? Ever?
It's a good question.
Not that I know of.
I don't think we have these in place today.
We don't have it, right?
We don't have
Would
it.
we be
They-
open to their changes that they're suggesting?
Which changes? To
entertain-
eliminate the bonuses, to put it under historic
Oh,
preservation?
to
You don't have a bylaw if you eliminate them.
To make one of the lots
Conforming.
You don't have any utilization. You don't have any
On your-
applicable properties if you
Just a
eliminate
question
it.
for you, Nan. On your chart,
Yeah.
how many of those properties that would fall under this are bigger than a, say, 60,000 square foot lot?
Very, very few.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
very, very
so
few.
none of them
Yeah.
would, if
I
it
mean-
was changed, it wouldn't make any sense to have this bylaw.
It wouldn't make any sense to have the bylaw. Yeah, I mean, we've done some research here on lot sizes and conformance of lot sizes, and what we've found is that a very, very high percentage of about 80% of our lots are undersized, and well over 50% of our lots are less than half of the required size. So when you say that...
So they're already on a 20,000 square foot lot, and we're gonna cut that into a 10,000
No.
square foot?
No. No. What it says is that you are permitting these new lots to be sized comparatively to over 50% of our current lots, undersized lots. So over 50% of our lots are already less than 50% of the required size. Yeah?
I'm getting it, yeah.
Okay.
You're saying a 20,000 square.
So this allows a 50% reduction, which means those new lots would be comparable, would be bigger than over 50% of our current lots
That we're,
that are undersized.
another article trying to change the
The-
underlying zoning
To allow them.
to make everything work, so now we're creating more of the undersized.
Hmm?
Would be making more of what we're plagued with now, I guess is the way I wanna put it. So right now you have 80% of the lots in town don't meet the zoning, so we're putting this other article through to try to alter the zoning back to when they were built. But with the historic, we want to take the historic house, give them another lot. Say you have a 40,000 square foot lot. So you're going to have a 20 for the historic house, 20 for the new house. So now you've just made two more non-conforming lots. So when the guy in that new house or the historic house goes and wants to put a new porch on,
They're already covered under this historic clause, so they are an acceptable size. They are not non-conforming. They are conforming to this bylaw.
okay.
Including the new one? What would they build on
Yeah.
this lot?
George Zaharos,
Yeah.
Princeton Street. 195, 152B, each resulting lot for both existing and new use contains not less than 50% of the lot area required for the applicable zoning district. If it's an RB, it's 40,000 square feet. If it's an RA, it's 40,000 square feet. If it's an RC, it's 20,000 square feet. And 50% of that, my simple math is 20, 20, and 10. Okay? You're making smaller lots, period. If you eliminate this or change this, you still have a zoning bylaw. Okay? You're giving them an extra unit. You're giving them an opportunity to create to cut off a lot that meets the applicable zoning. If you go to the rear lot bylaw, which we'll be discussing probably next if you're going to go that far, says a rear lot should be 80,000 square feet. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the 80,000 square feet. I think it's a lot. I don't know where our forefathers got that number from. But if that one said it meets the applicable zoning, then it would open up the rear lot. Okay? But you're going to create smaller lots in neighborhoods again.
Right.
And now what do? We're going to go back to different zoning. So you still have an article.
Okay.
How you doing? Ken Tassi, 60 Gay Street. I'm all for protecting the historic houses. I think there's a better way to do it, maybe even a tax break or something for people maintaining it and upholding it, but I don't think this is right. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we got anybody else that wants to speak on the historic? Not seeing anybody getting up, we're gonna go to Article 27, the Sign Advisory Committee. This is an easy one. We're abolishing it. It is no longer, I shouldn't say needed.
I actually requested this because it's been hard to find membership.
You can't find members for it, so nobody ever shows up. They never do anything, so we're just asking for it to be just taken right off the bylaws, and we'll go with that. Anybody want to talk on this?
Just to describe it too, it is written in the bylaws that the zoning board of appeals cannot make a decision without first getting a recommendation from the zoning bylaw, from the sign advisory committee. So it does kind of screw us up. We have to continue those for a whole month with the zoning board. So it is affecting businesses.
Okay.
That's who's going to get the variances.
Yep. All right. Seeing nobody, you're getting up.
He's coming back.
All right, so under sign advisory, in the downtown district, they have to have certain sizes to their signs, they have to conform with the buildings, that goes away?
No.
No. The building inspector will just,
The building inspector
Rule on
still
it.
has
Yep.
rules.
That's
And-
historic too, historic district.
and the historic will have input on it as
And did
well.
the sign advisory also decide whether you can put signs on telephone poles all around town, or is that a different department?
No, so the sign advisory's function was to review and make a recommendation to the zoning board. The zoning board made all the decisions.
Okay, so all the laws that are in place about signs, size of
Will
signs,
just
still
go to
stay
the
there.
zoning board.
the neon lights, all that is all still in
Still
place?
stays.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody else? Seeing nobody moving on this, we're going to the next one. Article 28, rear lots. The consensus on the rear lots is to,
Let Nancy talk about it.
yeah, we'll let
me to add
Nancy,
to
we'll
it?
let Nancy read in on this one.
The reason for this? The reason for this is that rear lots are currently required to be twice the size of frontage lots. If you create them as a pipe stem lot, which is what this clause addresses. However, you can, instead of creating them as a pipe stem lot, you can create them as a single property subdivision, in which case they only have to meet the standard zoning size. So nobody in their right mind ever uses this clause because they simply come in with a single unit subdivision instead. Single unit subdivision, however, requires that your driveway meet the standards of a street, because it's a subdivision, which is a little crazy. So basically, all this does is align rear lots with what is currently permitted as a single-family subdivision and eliminates the street width for the driveway.
So it's making it bigger,
Making what bigger?
the width.
No, this allows it to be built as a driveway instead of a street.
In that rear lot thing, don't you have a 50-foot minimum lot frontage?
You do.
And where a private road would only be a 40-foot minimum lot frontage.
Then you can certainly come in with a subdivision instead.
Okay, well, I'm just saying.
Or we could recommend that this changes to 40. I mean, I'm good with that too.
I'd go with 40 to keep them both the same.
Keep them the same. That works
Right.
for me.
And
I mean,
what would you
I think
drop
that
that
makes
down
sense.
to? Just the underlying zoning?
yeah.
And they're
Yeah,
still gonna
so it
go with
basically drops to the
14-foot wide
underlying.
road because, driveway because
Yeah.
of the fire.
Yeah, because of the
That's
fire
right.
department.
For the fire department.
Have to meet with all current zoning.
But you don't have to build a foundation for a street.
Right.
So that's what this is all about.
All right. Anybody want
Simply
to talk
align
on
it-
this one?
Align it
So the
with the
only question I
subdivision
have is-
requirements.
Yes.
This is not on the agenda,
Yep.
and we did not approve it to be on this agenda. So this is the
It's-
first time we're seeing it. This is the
No,
first time we're
it's
seeing
been
it.
in this, Nancy had it.
It's not in,
Evan and I
it's not
missed
in the
it.
last minutes. It's not in the last agenda. It's not in the meeting minutes. It wasn't discussed
No,
at last
but
meeting.
Nancy's passed it out. You may have missed it like the rest of us did, because it was sort of put in at the
It
end.
was attached to something else, so it was
But
included in the
wasn't an
materials
item to
distributed.
review. I mean, that's fine if you want to review it tonight. It's just that technically it should not be reviewed tonight. We did not approve it to be.
Technically, but
Right.
the ad was placed, so you'll open the public hearing at the next meeting. In the meantime, if it has to do with
So
any of
this
the
is
other
not part of this
articles,
public hearing then?
it's not a, you can certainly take public input whenever you want.
Okay,
But the actual public hearing will open next meeting.
for this item.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
I still want to hear what George has to say.
Right.
Go for it.
definitely. Certainly.
That's enough.
George Zaharolis, Princeton Street. I would not eliminate any of the sections. I would amend A to basically reflect the underlying zoning. Maybe even keep it at 40,000 square feet, so you don't have small lots, 20,000 square foot lots, but, underlying zoning at least a minimum. I would also like to, I think you should think about adding an H maybe, and that would be that access to the lot, the rear lot, has to be over the rear lot's property. Not like what was seen on Old Westford Road.
Yep.
That was Old Westford Road.
Right.
Where they put an easement through someone else's lot
It was
and got
actually a
around.
variance. They went
There
for
was
the
two, there was
variance.
two variances that I caught that had to go before the Board of Appeals, who approved them, which handcuffed this board. So, but what I'm saying, you all know about the easement that went across another piece of property alongside of a home. So if you are amenable to that, I would hope that you would at least think about adding that as an H.
Okay, thank you, George. Anybody else from the public?
I'm still gonna read that line in two for the first,
Read the what?
that line off the letter that we got, that the red Nancy had the
Oh,
letter.
yep.
We'll go
We
back to
gotta,
that. No,
Before we do that, we gotta get a motion to.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
okay.
Nan?
Yay.
Don? Good? All right, public hearing is closed on the zoning articles. We had missed one on 12 Kidder Road. A request for endorsement for Mylars has been continued to our next meeting. What else do we got on
There to
this?
read?
Yep. Loop has asked that, to request a continuation of tomorrow's scheduled hearing on the 12 Kidder Road to a date to be determined.
Okay.
Like another motion.
Well, one more on this one. Just for clarity, can we check with town council to see if this has to come before us where it's been so long. I think it's gone over the limit.
Yeah, town council is currently looking at it, and the rest of the letter that I,
Okay.
it's not to be
You
read,
just
explains that.
throw it out at him and say, will it have to come to get
They're
re-voted
discussing
on?
it. It sounds like they're gonna.
Sounds
come
like
to
it will, yes.
Sounds like
Okay.
they're gonna come to a conclusion. Yes.
Okay. That's it. And your motion was?
Motion to
Second.
adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Yeah.
There we go.